Chapter 46, Justice. Daniel took the offered spear and headed for the drawbridge with a focus and determination he had never felt before. The king had gathered his 4 remaining guards, and they followed Daniel out of the pyramid. Vogel hadn't killed Fate himself, but in Daniel's mind, that didn't matter. He was responsible, and he had to pay. He had to pay for Fate. He had to pay for Mrs. Washington. And most of all, he had to pay for trying to kill Madison. Daniel stopped outside the fake castle wall and looked down each of the 2 roads. The left one led to the pyramid where they last saw Vogel. The other led to the library pyramid and the bear. He thought for a moment, turned 3 times clockwise, and tossed Fate's coins into the air. Daniel snatched one of them as they tumbled. He opened his hand and read the coin. It said, "Turn left." He made one turn to retwist his lines and jogged down the left road at a moderate but determined pace. The mandrills followed, keeping an eye out for eagles. Daniel's stare never wavered from the road ahead. As he jogged, his mind played Fate's death over and over like a video on a loop. Fate had lived for 500 years, the luckiest person who had ever lived, and yet he died to save Daniel, died by his own choice. In the end, Fate's luck hadn't abandoned him. It was overruled. Daniel shook the thoughts from his mind. He needed to focus on Vogel. A mile and a half into the forest, they surprised a group of wild boar. Unlike the pink domesticated variety they had encountered earlier, these were dark and scruffy. A male with large razor-sharp tusks took a position in their path. Daniel slowed enough to spin once to the left. He had never untwisted his lines while running before, but he didn't stumble. The trees on both sides of the path shuddered. The boar snorted, yielded the road, and ran for the cover of the trees. The mandrills exchanged worried glances but kept up the pace. At the edge of the valley of the pyramid, Daniel nearly lost his balance as the level road switched to a downhill grade. He quickly recovered and continued down the road. As he neared the entrance to the pyramid, he could see Vogel sitting next to the closed door, apparently unable to open it. Vogel stood when he saw Daniel and the mandrills. He drew his pistol. Daniel leveled his spear and quickened his pace. Vogel fired once and missed. He fired a second time and again missed. Daniel was only yards away. Vogel squeezed the trigger a 3rd time, but nothing happened. The last bullet misfired. He dropped his pistol to meet the attack. The old revolver tumbled toward the flat stones. As the barrel twisted, it aimed perfectly upward. The hammer struck the unyielding stone surface. Vogel's last bullet finally fired. It struck him just under his chin and flew upward through his skull. A confused expression froze on the killer's face as he slumped to his knees. Daniel had been determined to run him through with the spear, but stopped in surprise as Vogel's lifeless body, still on its knees, fell to the side. Out of breath and exhausted, Daniel bent at the waist, leaning on his spear for support. He thought killing Vogel would calm his racing mind, but it hadn't. Daniel suddenly felt nauseous and vomited. The king picked up Vogel's pistol and presented it to Daniel. "Justice," he said. Daniel recovered, nodded to the king, and stowed the pistol under his belt. The Los Angeles, hidden by the trees and traveling at twice the speed of sound, silently sped overhead. The double sonic boom exploded a fraction of a second behind it, followed by the roar from the engines. In the blink of an eye, the ship disappeared beyond the trees again as it slowed and began a wide turn. The mandrills ducked to a crouch and scanned the tree line for danger. Daniel shielded his eyes and looked up. The Los Angeles had finished its turn. It was low on the horizon and approaching fast above the road to the library pyramid. The mandrills took up defensive positions close to Daniel. "Relax, it's just my sister," They shifted nervously. "Friends! They're my friends, understand?" he said, but noticed they weren't looking at the airship in the sky. They were staring at something below it. Daniel pushed his way between the mandrills and finally saw what concerned them. On the road from the library, the bear was galloping toward them at full speed. They stood their ground, spears leveled. Daniel pulled the pistol and checked the 6 cartridges. They were all spent. "Damn," he whispered and shouted, "Pikes!" But they didn't understand. He stepped in front of them, jammed the blunt end of the spear into the soft earth, and lifted the pointed end at an angle toward the charging bear. The mandrills did likewise, and the bear slowed. He was old and knew what spears were. In the hands of the mandrills, he could usually bat them away with his giant paws, but this was different. The bear saw the spears firmly backed against the ground. If he charged, he'd be impelled on them, and his own momentum would be his death. He stopped completely, stood on his hind legs, and roared in frustration. 316 turned the Los Angeles toward the pyramid after braking hard. The engines complained with a deafening whine. Madison, Ryan, and 316 ran out of the bridge to the gondola and into the elevator cage. The airship came alongside the bear as it ran toward Daniel. They were directly over it. Madison and Ryan drew their pistols. As soon as the elevator dropped below the floor of the gondola, Ryan fired his revolver several times, but something was wrong with Madison's automatic. "Zounds!" she cursed through gritted teeth as her pistol refused to fire. She racked the slide to chamber another round and pulled the trigger. It still refused. The bear turned away from the mandrills and swiped at the open air in the direction of the Los Angeles, but it was out of reach. The mandrills saw their opening and pulled their spears out of the ground. They threw all 5. The spears hit the bear with enough force to kill a smaller animal, but the bear's hide was too thick. The spears flailed around with the bear's every movement. It swiped at the closest mandrill and sent him flying. 316 was lowering the elevator, Ryan was fumbling with a handful of bullets trying to reload, and Madison was frantically examining her pistol. She dropped the magazine into her hand, felt its weight, and instantly knew the problem. It was far too light. She cast 316, an accusing stare. He looked apologetic, pulled 2 knives from a pocket, kicked off his boots, and leapt from the elevator toward the bear, shouting on his way down, "I'm sorry, Madison." He landed on the bear's back, took 3 fists of brown fur, and began stabbing at its thick hide with his knives. The bear stood on its hind paws to shake off this new problem, but 316 was holding on tight. Ryan had reloaded, but didn't have a clear shot. The bear reached back, again and again, trying to get a grip on 316. On the 3rd attempt, a claw found its mark and pulled 316 close enough for a crushing bite. The bear shook 316 like a rag doll and tossed him high in the air. His limp body hit the ground and lay still. 316! Shouted Madison in horror. Daniel had used the distraction to crawl closer. The bear was still standing on its hind legs. Daniel jumped the last few feet to the perfect spot, under the bear's chest. He rolled onto his back. The bear's front paws were still in the air. Time seemed to slow. He thought of the empty pistol and cursed his luck. Fate's words drifted through his mind. We have no need of such crude things. Daniel raised the spear until it was pointing at the bear's descending throat. The huge paws struck the grass on either side of him. The bear froze. The spear had penetrated its lower jaw, and the bear's own weight had thrust it up into his brain. Daniel scrambled out of the way in time to avoid being crushed as the huge bear fell to its side. An eerie silence followed. The bear was dead, but so was 316. The engines of the Los Angeles had gone still, and it began to drift away, no longer receiving commands from his brain. Madison and Ryan opened the cage's gate and jumped the last 10 feet. The Los Angeles had been fighting a strong wind before her engines stopped. With no more propulsion, the wind took its prize, and the Los Angeles drifted over the treetops and out of sight. They ran to Daniel, and Madison gave him one quick squeeze before pulling away to check him for injuries. "I'm all right, Madison." He was shaking. "I'm all right." She hugged him again, longer this time, and cast a wary glance at the mandrills, who were keeping a safe distance from both her and Ryan. "These are my friends. This is the Mandrill King, and these others, I don't know their names." She released her grip on Daniel and noticed Vogel's body in front of the pyramid. "Is that Vogel?" Daniel nodded. "And he's dead?" she asked. Daniel nodded again. Madison's expression shifted to horror. "Did you have to—" "No," he said, his face showing the pain he was feeling. "But I wanted to. I wanted to so much." His jaw muscles flexed as he said it through gritted teeth. Madison pulled him close. "Daniel, I'm so sorry," she whispered and kissed the top of his head. "He tried to kill you. I couldn't let him try again," said Daniel. His voice was quiet, but it now had a hardness that had never been there before. Madison pulled away and looked at Daniel with a serious expression. "I can take care of myself, Daniel. Don't ever put yourself in danger just to help me. Got it?" "I'm sorry about your friend," he said, and looked over to the place where 316 had landed. "316!" shouted Madison, having momentarily forgotten about him. She ran over to the place where his small body lay unmoving in the tall grass. She knelt by his still form. All the muscles on his skin had relaxed. The chromatophores displayed an unchanging kaleidoscope of colors. Madison stroked his face. Daniel recovered his spear from the bear carcass and joined her beside 316. "I wish I could have met him in person. He seemed nice." She only nodded, her tears dripping onto her friend's still face. "We can use my cutter to get home if it's still there," said Daniel, "but we should bury them before we go. Fate's in the castle." He sounded so grown up that it startled Madison. She turned to look at him. Standing there, leaning on his spear, Daniel somehow even looked taller. The handle of Vogel's pistol was visible above his belt. She took the pistol from him and hugged his waist. "Okay," he said flatly, "but I'm keeping the spear." Madison was still crying, but she laughed at that and wiped her nose. Ryan had been quiet until now, but hadn't let Madison get more than a few feet away. Daniel turned to face him, and Ryan was momentarily taken aback at the eye contact. "When—" Daniel began, but glanced at the sky where the Los Angeles had last been. He turned back to Ryan and started again. "If we get home, I would like to go fishing with you." Before Ryan could respond, the tiny robots inside 316's brain finished their repairs. His multicolored skin snapped back to neutral gray. 316 opened his eyes and took a breath. "Did someone say fishing?" Madison gasped. "What happened?" 316 asked, still lying on the ground. "Crikey, Jiminy, we thought you were dead." She lifted his tiny body and held him tightly. "Ouch," whispered 316 into Madison's ear. She relaxed her grip and gently laid him back on the grass. "My robots are still fixing my bones," he groaned. Madison playfully tapped one of his limbs. "You stole my bullets." "Yes," 316 said apologetically, "a strategic error as it turned out, but I stole them while you slept." Ryan chuckled. "How are you still alive?" "It pays to be squishy sometimes," 316 said, and shrugged. "I'm very squishy. Did I save your brother? Did I kill the beast?" He sat up enough to see Daniel. "I did, and returning from the dead is number 18 on the heroes list. I win." Ride of the Valkyries thundered from the Los Angeles as she began a slow turn in their direction.